The story of the United States is not just the story of land and people, it is the story of visionaries who dared to dream beyond their time, who faced unimaginable odds, who fought battles with pen, with sword, with ideas, and with courage. It is the story of those extraordinary individuals who stepped into history and by the strength of their character, reshaped the destiny of an entire nation. When we look back at the American journey, a few faces emerge with striking clarity, men whose words and deeds echo through centuries, men who took an uncertain future and carved out of it a republic, a union, an idea greater than themselves. Among them stand Benjamin Franklin, Ulysses S. Grant, Alexander Hamilton, Abraham Lincoln, and George Washington. Together they form a chain that connects the birth of the nation to its survival, its growth, and its promise to the world. Imagine a young America still under the shadow of the British crown, a land restless, its people yearning for liberty, its future uncertain. In the heart of this storm, Benjamin Franklin rises. He is not just a politician, he is a scientist, a writer, a diplomat, a man of unending curiosity and boundless imagination. He ties a key to a kite and draws electricity from the skies, showing mankind that nature itself can be understood, controlled, and used for progress. He writes essays, prints newspapers, publishes wisdom that lights the way for ordinary people. But more than this, Franklin becomes the voice of America in Europe, persuading kings and courts to support a young rebellion. Without his wit, his wisdom, and his diplomacy, perhaps the revolution would never have survived. He was the bridge between the dream and the reality, between colonies and the birth of a nation. Franklin proved that ideas can be more powerful than armies, that knowledge can liberate just as much as any battle. As America fought for independence and took its first steps into nationhood, new challenges emerged. It was not enough to break away from Britain, the new republic had to stand on its own feet, financially, politically, and structurally. And here stepped forward Alexander Hamilton. He was young, brilliant, sometimes controversial, but his vision was crystal clear. Without a strong financial foundation, the United States would collapse. He became the first Secretary of the Treasury and laid down the architecture of America's economy. He established the National Bank, created systems to handle debts, and brought order to the chaos of post-war finances. Where others only saw weakness, Hamilton saw opportunity. He believed America could rise as a modern state if it embraced strong institutions, discipline, and fiscal responsibility. His writings in the Federalist Papers still resonate as guiding principles of governance. He was not just an administrator, he was a builder of systems, an architect of strength. America's economic muscle, which later carried it to the top of the world, began in the sharp mind and unyielding determination of Alexander Hamilton. But nations are not built in peace alone. The test of unity comes in the fires of war, and America's greatest test came during the Civil War, when the country was torn in half by slavery and secession. It was here that Ulysses S. Grant, a quiet man of steel, took command. He was not a politician, not a man of words, but a soldier who understood the brutal logic of war. With calm resolve, he led the Union Army through bloody battles, never giving up, never backing down. He knew that victory required sacrifice, endurance, and relentless will. Under his command, the Union triumphed, and the dream of a single, undivided America was saved. But Grant was not only a general of war, later, as president, he became a guardian of peace. He stood for civil rights, fought against corruption, and worked to heal a fractured nation. Grant's life was proof that leadership is not always loud, sometimes it is quiet determination, sometimes it is simply standing firm when everything around you seems to be falling apart. And yet, even greater than the general was the president who guided America through its darkest hour, Abraham Lincoln. His story is one of humble beginnings, a boy born in poverty, self-taught, who rose to the highest office in the land. But his rise was not for personal glory, it was for the soul of the nation. When America was at risk of tearing itself apart, Lincoln became the voice of unity, the moral compass pointing toward justice. He declared that a house divided cannot stand. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, striking at the heart of slavery and giving hope to millions who had been denied their humanity. His speeches, simple yet profound, carried the weight of centuries. At Gettysburg, he reminded the world that America was conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He carried the unbearable burden of war on his shoulders, yet never abandoned compassion, never lost sight of the dream of a united nation. His life was cut short by an assassin's bullet, but his legacy became eternal. Lincoln proved that leadership is not about power, but about sacrifice, about holding onto principles even when it costs you everything. But before Lincoln, before Grant, before Hamilton, there was the man who set it all in motion, George Washington. He was the first leader, the commander of the Continental Army, the man who faced the might of the British Empire with a ragged, untrained army of farmers and dreamers. Through years of hardship, freezing winters, and crushing defeats, Washington never surrendered. His courage inspired his men to keep fighting when hope was nearly gone. And when victory finally came, when independence was secured, Washington did something truly extraordinary. He walked away from power. He refused to become a king, refused to let the revolution end in tyranny. Instead, he chose to serve as the first president, setting the example of leadership by restraint, by humility, by duty. He served 2 terms and then stepped aside, proving that in America, power belongs to the people, not to rulers. Washington gave the young nation not only freedom but the very model of democratic leadership that has guided it ever since. When we put all these stories together, we see not just individuals but a living chain of vision and action. Franklin brought wisdom and diplomacy. Hamilton gave structure and strength. Washington led with courage and restraint. Lincoln saved the soul of the nation with justice and sacrifice. Grant defended unity with iron will and then worked to heal with dignity. Together, they built, preserved, and transformed a nation that would one day lead the world. And what did these lives tell us? They tell us that history is shaped not by comfort but by struggle. They show us that greatness is born not in palaces but in humble beginnings, in curiosity, in courage, in persistence. They remind us that one person with vision can light a fire that changes generations. America is what it is today not just because of battles fought or constitutions written, but because of the character of these men who chose principle over power, service over self, and nation over personal gain. As we look at their faces, etched in portraits, carved in stone, remembered in books, we are reminded that they were human, flawed, imperfect, yet driven by something greater. They were not gods, but men who believed in the promise of liberty, justice, and unity. And in believing, they made it real. Their stories are not just the story of America, they are the story of what humanity can achieve when guided by vision, courage, and conviction. And so, as time moves forward, their voices still whisper to us. Franklin tells us to keep seeking knowledge. Hamilton urges us to build strong foundations. Washington reminds us to lead with humility. Lincoln calls us to justice and equality. Grant teaches us to endure and to heal. They are not just part of history, they are part of the living spirit of a nation that still strives to live up to the dreams they set in motion.